Kane is in the building.
What is up, everybody? Happy game day eve again. It's on the eve of another one of the major matchups with the Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you so much for tuning in. I got a great show for you tonight. As always, we have my world famous reverse power rankings. Then I'll break down the 1 p.m. slate of games. Tell you what I'll be watching before the 4 p.m. kickoff. And then I got a great guest tonight. I got Kopp. He's the lead analyst at Arrowhead Pride. We recorded earlier this morning, and I will play that for you guys. It was awesome. We did a full breakdown, injuries, trends, a lot of analytics, trench warfare. We did the whole gambit, so I'll play that for you guys in a little bit. And it'll be a really good show tonight. We'll start things off with a few ads, and then we'll get rolling. I'd like to thank our show sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Tree Farms, for supporting the show. They'd like to share a message with you for this holiday season. Remember when we took pride in the things we built, the things we grew? When we put aside small differences to support one another, we can do it again, and it's not as hard as you think. This Christmas, say no to fake trees. They're made of lead and plastic in sweatshops overseas. Choose a traditional, sustainable, real tree grown by American family farmers in every state. The best way to celebrate Christmas is with a real Christmas tree grown here in America. So this Christmas, don't fake it. Go real. That way you'll have a really great Christmas. Sponsored by the growers of real Christmas trees at Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms. W Energy is our newest network sponsor. W is an amazing energy drink that is made with clean ingredients to give you the energy boost you need with no crash. They also offer an electrolyte drink to keep you hydrated. Hit the link in the bio or go to w.gg and use promo code DUE, D-U-E, and get 10% off your first purchase. All right, let's get right into it. First we'll go over the early slate of games, what I'll be watching before the 4 o'clock game. So I'll probably be doing the YouTube TV quad box thing. Really been enjoying that with Sunday Ticket. Definitely get the student version though. It's a lot cheaper. But the 4 games I'll probably be watching closest will be the Raiders at the Dolphins. Not so much, obviously, because it'll be a great game, but because of the Dolphins aspect of it. Dolphins have to win. Their margin is over. They cannot afford to have any more losses, really, if they want to sneak into the wild card. And so they gotta win this game. So I want to see how they play. Also, from a player prop perspective, there's some players on Miami I like. So I'll be watching that one. It's the Raiders at Dolphins. The other game I'll be watching is the LA Rams. They're 4-5. They travel to Foxborough to take on the 3-7 Patriots. Again, watching that one because it's a AFC East game. And then I want to see the Rams, man. I've really liked the Rams, but they've been really banged up by injuries. And I want to see if they can turn it around and either compete for the division or at least a wild card. I don't know how many more games I'm able to watch Matthew Stafford, so I enjoy watching them, and hopefully they beat up on the Patriots. Third game I'll be watching is Indianapolis Colts. They're 4-6 at the New York Jets, who are 3-7. Same thing, another AFC East matchup. It's always cool watching the Colts play AFC East teams since they used to be in the AFC East with us. And I think this is a sneaky game where the Colts could beat the Jets. Colts are a little banged up on the offensive line, though. Like, they could be down to only one original starter on that offensive line. But Anthony Richardson back in. I think that helps the run game. Jonathan Taylor. I think you can run on this Jets squad. And who wouldn't love to watch the Jets and Aaron Rodgers lose to start off the day? So I'll have that game on as well. And then the fourth game I'll have on is the Ravens 7-3, traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the 7-2 Steelers. That should be a great game. Definitely we'll be keeping a close eye on that one. I'm not sure who I'll be pulling for between the two. I mean, a tie is not the worst thing either. I'll probably be pulling for the Steelers, even though that they only have 2 losses. This is their first divisional game, which is crazy to get to week 11 and not play a divisional game yet. But the Steelers have a really tough stretch. They have all 6 of their divisional games now. And so we'll see what this Steelers team is made of. But I think they're built really well to face this Ravens team. I think their defensive line can get after it. I think they can stop the run well enough and cause problems. They've played Lamar pretty well in the past. And so I'm really interested to see how that game goes. So 4 games I'll be watching are Raiders, Dolphins, Rams, Patriots, Colts, Jets, and then Ravens, Steelers. I had a couple people ask me if I would recap player props. So the player props from the Germany game, Giants versus the Panthers. I had 5 player props that I had picked out. We went 4 for 5. We missed cashing our 5-player parlay prop, which would have been 1,545 odds. We missed that by 1 Malik Neighbors catch. So we had Tyrone Tracy to go over 75 yards. He went over 100. We had Robinson to go over 4.5 receptions. Wandell, he did that. He had 5 receptions. We had Theo Johnson going over 2.5 receptions and over 23.5 yards. He did that. He had 4 catches for 37 yards. And then we had Malik Neighbors going over 7 receptions. He ended up with 6 receptions on 10 targets. It's a shame we missed it by 1, but we will cash another parlay here shortly. I have some good ones for this week. So that's the recap. We were 4 or 5. Not too bad. All right, reverse power rankings time. Everyone's favorite. Get into the reverse power rankings. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars at 32. I don't know what else to do with them, man. They're more talented than this, but with Mac Jones in there, man, that offense looked terrible. I had them at 26 last week, so they're at 32 this week. 31, I have the Giants. Probably would have them at 32, but I think they're going to make a quarterback change coming out of the bye. I like their defensive line a lot and their running game, and so I think they might turn it around here and maybe win another game or two. If they can get any kind of spark from the passing game. I had them at 27 last week, and they'll be at 31 this week. 30, I have Dallas. These teams at the bottom are just tough to sort out. Dallas without Dak. Dak's going on season-ending IR. You got CeeDee Lamb, who's injured. That team's a mess. I had them at 25 last week, and they're at 30 this week, and they could drop to 31 or 32. So we'll see. They have Houston this week, and I don't think that game's going to be close. 29, I have Tennessee. I had them at 31 last week. They move up 2 spots, mainly because the other teams were just that bad. So we'll see if Tennessee can put up a fighter's chance. They put up a fighter's chance last week until the end. But we'll see what they come out with this week. I have Las Vegas at 28. I had them at 29 last week. Same thing with all these bottom teams. Like, you can put them in any order you want, and I don't think you're going to get much argument. Carolina at 27. I had them at 32 last week. And I moved them up 5 spots for beating the Giants. I don't know how much credit you get for beating the Giants, but Bryce Young's looked better. They can run the ball. And it just comes down to that defense. Can they make a couple stops or a turnover or two? And I think they'll be in some games. But Carolina at 27. I have New Orleans at 26. we'll see how competitive they could be. I thought they should have played better last week. They have a good matchup this week, so we'll see if they can turn things around a little bit. I had them at 28 last week. I moved them up to 26. I have Chicago at 25. Chicago's going to keep dropping for me. I'm not sure they're going to win another game this year. We'll see the offensive coordinator change. I don't think Waldron was a help, but I don't think it's something they're going to solve this year. Caleb really needs some work, and I really think they're going to struggle. So I had Chicago at 15 last week, and so it's a pretty big drop. But like I said, their schedule gets really tough, and I'm not sure they're going to win another game this year. So I have Chicago at 25. I have New England at 24. I had them at 30 last week. But I moved them all the way up to 24. With Drake May in there, they at least look competitive. He can, scramble and evade some of the rush, and he can make some big throws and bring a little bit of spark to that offense. That defense looks a little more alive. They're getting Christian Barmore back this week, and so I think they're a feisty team, and I have New England at 24. I have Cleveland at 23. I had Cleveland at 23 last week as well. They're coming off the bye, and I want to see what they are, man. This is a game against New Orleans that they should win. Jameis revenge game. I'm definitely interested to see that game. I like some props in that game as well. And so I want to see what Cleveland's got before I drop them farther. They cannot obviously afford to lose any more games if they want to fight for the wild card. And they have a really uphill battle. But I have Cleveland at 23. I got the Jets at 22. I am at 19 last week, so I dropped them 4 spots. It's a big game, man, for them. All these last games have been big games. I thought they were going to do something against Arizona, and they got absolutely embarrassed and crushed. I think the Colts could do something similar. I think they can do the power run game and kind of control the clock on it and maybe force some turnovers. So we'll see. Again, the big question mark for me is that Colts offensive line and the injuries there, and can the Jets do anything to defend the Colts? But I have the Jets at 22, and they could really drop if they lose this game. I have Indy at 21. We'll see what bringing Anthony Richardson back does. I mean, I thought that whole thing was hilarious situation. I mean, you draft a project quarterback. You know he's going to be a project, and then you act surprised when he has growing pains and is a project. The worst thing that could have happened to him last year was that injury that prevented him from being able to have a full offseason rehabbing and playing and practicing. So, you basically throw away the second half of last year and all offseason. The dude's barely played any games, so you got to develop him if he's your future and play him. And so you win a couple games, and all of a sudden you abandon the plan and bench him. I thought that was craziness. Bring in Flacco, and then Flacco plays terrible for 2 weeks, turns the ball over a ton, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're gonna go back to Anthony Richardson now, like. Just a disaster. I like Shane Steichen too, their head coach, but I do not like the way they handled the situation. So we'll see how Anthony Richardson looks. The Colts PR team sure is selling it hard. Like he had a lot of self-reflection over the 2 weeks and soul-searching and realizes he needs to be a better leader, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see what happens with that. So the Colts at 21. I have Seattle at 20. I had them at 18 last week, but man, I don't know with this Seattle team. I expected a lot more from them. I thought their defense would play better, their offensive line. I thought they'd be able to run the ball better, and so I worry about them. Their time to pull away in that division has passed. I think. I think the Rams are getting healthier. Arizona has caught fire. And so I worry. And then obviously San Francisco too, right? They battled a bunch of injuries and now they're getting healthy. So I worry about Seattle. I'm not sure we're going to see them any higher than at 20. I have the Rams at 19. Really disappointed with how they played last week. I thought Stafford played terrible. That was a big game for them to to kind of bounce back, win, and start a little streak here to make a push for not only the division but also for the playoffs, for the wild card. And so dropping that game last week was rough. I have 18. I have Miami. I had Miami at 24 last week. Obviously, that was a big win for them, and they just got to get them rolling now, right? Their margin for error is very slim, but they got a very winnable game against Las Vegas, and so I think Miami can go on a little bit of a run here. The schedule's not tough. I think Miami could sneak into that wild card and backdoor their way in, but there's no margin for error, and this team in December is and late November has shown to not be the best. So we'll see with Miami, but I moved them up 6 spots to 18. Tampa Bay is at 17. I kept them at 17. Really, they just got to survive until Mike Evans gets back. I worry that they're gonna dig themselves too big a hole. They've been dropping a couple of games here lately, and they gotta turn that ship around. I thought last week was a rough one for them to drop before the bye week, so we'll see how they heal up and come out of the bye. But they got to start turning it back on, or they are going to be missing out on the playoffs. 16, I have Atlanta. Man, I don't know what to make of Atlanta. It's like one week I think they're going to be a good team, and the next week they look absolutely terrible. So we'll see about them. Got to take care of business in their division with Carolina and New Orleans for them to want to have a chance at winning the division in the playoffs. But with Tampa Bay floundering, the door is wide open for Atlanta to take that division. They definitely have the talent, but something's up with that team, man. They lay some serious eggs. So we'll see with Atlanta at 16. I had them at 20 last week, so I moved them up 4 spots. 15, I have Denver. This whole group of teams, man, you could order them again however you want. This clump of basically 19 to probably 13, maybe 14. But Denver, solid defense, but what are you going to get out of Bo Nix in that offense? Can you get enough? The run game, like, I thought it was getting going with Javonte Williams, but now they're bringing Audric Estime in and getting him more involved, and Javonte Williams less involved. And so I don't know what's going on. It comes down with Denver. Can they score enough? Can Bo Nix, make enough throws, that's not behind the line of scrimmage. He's also a tale of two halves with Bo Nix. So we'll see. I had him at 14 last week, drop him 1 spot to 15. I have the Chargers at 14. Really well coached with Harbaugh. That defense is playing really well. And then, can they get enough out of their weapons with Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson coming back? I think will help some with some of the big plays. Yes, should have beaten KC. That is Denver with the blocked field goal. But, you start worrying about Denver, though, with some of the losses that they've had. They're starting to pile up. They might get run down here in the wild card. Chargers at 14. Big game for them against the Bengals. This is a game where it's almost must win essentially for them as far as tiebreakers in the wild card. They're going to need them, and so I think that's a big test for them, and we'll see how they come out of it. But I have the Chargers at 14. I have Arizona at 13. I had them at 22 last week. I moved them all the way up to 13. They've been stacking wins, man. They've been playing bully ball. That offensive line is really clicking when it comes to the run game, and Connor's running hard. So I have Arizona at 13. I have Cincinnati at 12. I had Cincinnati at 12 last week. They stay there. Big game for them, like I said, against the Chargers. We'll see how they do. This is where they got to turn it on, man. They dug themselves a hole, and the margins for them are real slim, especially when all the division games they have coming up. Yeah, Kyler has been cooking for Arizona, man. When he's on, he's as good as any of them with the playmaking ability he has. But problem with him is he's so damn streaky. All right, so Cincinnati at 12. We'll see how they come out of this Chargers battle. Should be a great game. 11, I have Houston. I had Houston at 11 last week. They should have no problem beating up on Dallas. They're getting healthy. They were real banged up. So they got to keep getting healthy. They get Nico Collins back this week, but Anderson Jr. is still out. Will Anderson, he's still out, and so I think they got to get healthy. But yeah, I think they're going to be a tough out for anybody. So we'll see how they do. They got some big games coming up, and we'll see how they fall. But they should definitely run away with their division. I have San Francisco at 10. I had San Francisco at 10 last week as well. I want to see another week with Christian McCaffrey. See how Debo can do. They play Seattle. They got to win it. They got to start stacking wins as well. They've kind of messed around too much and lost games, and they really gotta start going on a run here. They got Seattle this week, and then in 2 weeks they play Buffalo. So San Francisco at 10. We'll see how they do if they can start stacking wins. I have Washington at 9. I had Washington at 9 last week. I don't really penalize them much for that game against Philly. I'm really bullish on Philly, and I think they need Lattimore to get healthy and to get in that lineup, because I think that's really what they're missing is a shutdown corner. But Cliff's got a reputation for fading as the seasons go on, or as the season gets later. So I'm wondering how that offense is going to look. Are people going to figure it out? Is he going to have enough wrinkles in there? Jaden Daniels, man, is really building a reputation for a check down artist or a deep thrower. He does not like that intermediate 10 to 20 yard distance, and it's hard to make a living in the NFL with only going deep balls or all short stuff. So with all the teams playing too high now, and then you can play press, like Philly did, and really lock down that that offense. So I'm wondering to see how Washington adjusts, but I have them at 9 right now. I have Green Bay at 8. I had them at 5 last week. I dropped them down to 8. We'll see. They got a tough stretch here. I want to see how they respond and if they can rip off some wins. But I like their squad a lot. I like that offense. I want to see Love get healthy, and I think Green Bay can go on a run. They're definitely talented enough, but they got to put it all together. So I have Green Bay at 8. I have Minnesota at 7. I had Minnesota at 8 last week, so they go up one spot. Darnold worries me, though, man. Darnold's starting to regress. He's starting to go to the Darnold of old, missing easy throws, making bad decisions, turning the ball over way too much. And so that's what has me worried about getting more on the Minnesota bandwagon. But Hawkinson looks good. Obviously with Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones a little banged up. We'll see how he does. But I like that squad. I like the variance that the defense brings. As far as causing turnovers and chaos. So I have Minnesota at 7. I have Pittsburgh at 6. I had them at 7 last week, so I move them up one spot. Big game for them, obviously, right? If they can take care of business against the Ravens, that would be huge. I think they're built well to play against the Ravens. But I want to see how Russ does in a big spot like this. And if they can slow down that running game of Baltimore. I think they got the horses to do it, so we'll see with Pittsburgh. But I have them at 6. I have Buffalo at 5. I had Buffalo at 6 last week. Injuries are worrisome for me. Obviously, when you're missing your wide receiver 1 has a broken wrist or whatever, your wide receiver 2 or arguably 3, however you want to call Shakir and Coleman, depending on where they line up, is obviously out with a wrist as well. Kincaid with the knee, we'll see how long that lasts. Spencer Brown banged up as well. So Bills have got to get healthy. Getting Matt Milano back after the bye hopefully will help too. Hopefully all those guys are back after the bye. But big game for the Bills, obviously, against Kansas City. We'll see how they do. But right now I have them at 5. I have Baltimore at 4. I had Baltimore at 4 last week. My top 4 all stays the same from last week. So I had Baltimore at 4. Obviously, big test against Pittsburgh. So we'll see how they do. But not much more needs to be said about Baltimore, right? They're a load. They're a lot to handle. I think as long as you could throw the ball on them and get the passing game going, you can compete with Baltimore. I have Philly at 3. Really like the Eagles, man. Now that they're getting healthy, the offensive line is playing much better. When AJ Brown is healthy, that offense just goes a lot better. And then now with Barkley there as well, they're a lot to handle. And then that defense, I mean, they probably have the best secondary in football right now. I mean, that secondary is playing lights out. With the rookie Mitchell and DeJean, they've been playing really, really well. So I have Philly at 3, and I think they're going to be a really tough out. I have Detroit at 2. Really like what the Lions have been doing. Laporte is hurt now, so we'll see about that. But they got Jacksonville this week, so they shouldn't have too much problem. I imagine you're going to see a lot of Gibbs and Montgomery and Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and they should take care of business against Jacksonville. So I have Detroit at 2. Eagles, Bills, Super Bowl, book it. Hey, I'd take it, man. I'd take it. I'll take any team with the Bills in the Super Bowl, right? But yeah, I totally could see Eagles beat Bills plus 13,000. Yeah, I could Bills beat the Eagles plus 11,000. I don't know. I think the Eagles would be favored in that game. Don't you think so? But yeah, all those were preseason bets. Wow, that's impressive. I've loved Philly since the beginning, so I'm there with you on that one. I think they're going to be a load, man. Philly's going to be a load, but no surprise there for Kansas City being number 1, right? I mean, I don't know. I saw a lot of talking heads and clickbait people moving Kansas City down to 2, 3, 4 in power rankings, and I think that's just insane to me. You have the back-to-back champions that are undefeated, 9-0, and they're not number 1 in a power ranking. I just don't understand that unless like there was some type of crazy injury to Chris Jones or Mahomes or something like that, but I don't understand how they're not number 1. I mean, they always play games ugly, so I don't understand the argument of, oh, well, they style points or, oh, they haven't blown anyone out. Like, it doesn't matter, man. They just win. People used to say the same thing about New England and Tom Brady, man, but they just win. Is KC the worst 9-0 team of all time? Studies say yes. I appreciate the comment and the sarcasm there, Jesse, but no, I don't think so. I don't even think that's close. Man, recent history, that Steelers team was awful. They were what, 10-0 or 11-0. They were garbage. That Philly team as well that ripped one off. They weren't great either. So no, I think KC's legit, man. I only think they're getting better too. We'll obviously go into it some with Ron and here in a little bit, but yeah, I think they're getting healthy at the right time, and yeah, that Pitt team was awful, man. It wasn't an opinion. It was studied by scientists. Yeah. Yep. It's science, bro. Facts. Nothing but facts. Yeah, so we'll see. I think Kansas City's getting healthy, man, and that's what's worrisome. Juju's coming back now, and with D Hop and Worthy, and I think they're gonna figure some stuff out, and Pacheco's coming back, and Amenahue, and so we'll see, man. I think they're gonna surprise some people. So I hope I am wrong there, though. All right, well, I guess we'll get right to it. All right, now I'm joined by Ron Kopp. He's the lead analyst at Arrowhead Pride. Ron, how's it going? Thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir. I'm doing well. I'm excited for this game, man. It's battle of the two AFC Titans. I'm fired up.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's always a entertaining matchup, whichever way it goes. Seems like we own the regular season right now, and you guys own the postseason. Hopefully, something changes this year, but yeah, it's always a good matchup.
Even the fact that this is like the first regular season game in Buffalo and forever.
Yeah, I think since
with
COVID.
Fans, yeah, with fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, even with that, y'all have taken it. But yeah, no, I'm fired up for this game. Hate that we'll get into it. Obviously, I hate that both sides are kind of impacted by injury a little bit, but that's the nature of it.
Yeah, for sure. This time of year, you're never gonna have a fully healthy squad, so we'll see how much it matters. All right. Well, a little bit about the matchup for everybody. It's gonna be at 4:00 Eastern time. The game's on CBS. The announcers are always Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, it feels like, for this one.
Yeah.
Uh, Tracy Wolfson's going to be on the sidelines. Bills are currently favored by 2.5, so pretty much even. And the total is 46.5. Um, we'll start with injuries. You want to start with the Kansas City side. It looks like pretty much everybody is good to go. I didn't grab the injury graphic for you guys because it's pretty much all go minus Pacheco and Amenahue, who are still
Right.
coming back from IR. So do you have any injury updates? Is anyone battling anything that might impact them all in the game?
Well, I do think it's worth noting, yeah, that the last time these two teams played, both those guys you just mentioned, who are both working back from injury, currently still the practice windows opened, obviously, but haven't gotten all the way back from the injuries they have suffered. Omenahue and Pacheco, yeah, I think Omenahue was a big part of last year's performance, even though the Bills obviously had their way a little bit on offense. Pacheco was obviously a big part of last year's ability to get the win in, but Juju Smith-Schuster is coming back, had a hamstring injury that actually put him on IR 4 weeks ago. So he's back, and I am interested to see, because that happened right before the DeAndre Hopkins trade. So we really haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
the Chiefs with D Hop, Kelsey, Juju, and Xavier Worthy all on the field. I think it does kind of give them a nice, just another layer. The receiver position is so thin. Juju's a veteran that Mahomes trusts, so it is an important addition back on the offense. I would say having him not even questionable, he's ready to roll.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll get more into the specifics with him and the skill set mismatch, but yeah, I think he plays against the Bills really well with his ability to sit down in zones
Right,
and identify soft
right.
spots. So yeah, I think that's a big piece for this game.
Well, and to be honest with you too, like the DeAndre Hopkins has been really playing that like slot role where he's
Hmm.
sitting against zone and playing opposite Kelsey, where yeah, that strong side coverage is going towards Kelsey, so he kind of plays on the backside. But this gives them the ability to put Juju back in the slot and let Hopkins do a little more, maybe play that outside receiver more, and kind of maybe work as more of a perimeter guy. He hasn't been able to as much because he's been working so much in that slot position that Juju, like you just mentioned, he does really well against, over the middle against zone. That's huge against the Bills. So yeah, definitely a big point here.
And then is Mahomes still bothered by the ankle injury? I know that he had 2 weeks ago. I think. Have you
Yeah, no,
noticed anything with that?
I mean, I do think this last game, I think a theme of the game was that he missed some opportunities, and I really feel like, first of all, the left tackle position, which is worth noting, maybe when talking about injuries, Wanye
Hmm.
Morris, who was missing kind of part of last game, and that really led to some shaky offensive play from the rookie left tackle. Wanye Morris, full participant all week. It's a bone bruise, so Andy Reid kind of talked about it, how it's something where you kind of just need to give it rest maybe for a little bit, but you can bounce back from it. It's not like a long term. It's not like something that he's damaging it more and more the more he plays. It's more just a really deep bruise that once you bang it up in a game, it's kind of hard to. He needed that time to get it back. So all I'd say, Wanya Moore starting left tackles back. That should make Mahomes feel a little better. Main point though, he missed a few throws. I kind of question maybe that if that ankle is bothering him on planting kind of when you're really throwing those deep balls or trying to put some velocity on, you're really planting off that ankle. It can
Hmm.
kind of shake you up if you're not feeling great about it. So yeah, I think it is bothering him just a teensy, but obviously he's a full participant in practice. He's not gonna be a limited participant. And you know what? I kind of buried the lead a little bit. Kicker Harrison Butker is on IR all of a sudden.
Yep. Good
Got
call out. Yep.
injured in the middle of in the middle of the week, and that's a huge thing in this game, right? You talk about how these games are so close. I do think it could come down to a field goal, and not having
Yep.
Harrison Butker is huge for the Chiefs. So that is a huge part of this game.
Yeah, and it has, right? I mean, hate to bring it up, but right, 13 seconds. I mean, right, that doesn't happen without him, and so he's been pretty damn clutch, if not, top two, top three kickers for the last 5 years, probably. So,
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of seen
him and
Justin Tucker
Tucker,
fall off. Yeah, Justin
right? Yeah,
Tucker
dude.
a little bit this
What a
year.
fall off, yeah, for sure, especially on the deep stuff. So, yeah, I think that's huge, and we'll have to see going forward. I'm curious. I don't know if you know this, but is the IR thing more just to why risk anything else? Let's just shut him down and let him come back fully healthy, type of deal, or do you think it's actually like a long term thing as far as like he really needs at least four games?
No, I do think it could have been a situation where maybe if it's a different organization, different motivations, yeah, maybe he does just try to not have the surgery. But I think that's why it kind of went in stages. Like first Bucker was just questionable all of a sudden, and then
Hmm.
you got like an hour later, like, oh, he's actually out on the IR, because I think maybe they made the decision. All right, let's just get him the surgery, have him ready for the postseason.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, signing a practice squad kicker, although he has had success in the NFL recently. Spencer Schrader off the Jets practice squad, so a little AFC East revenge coming here, I guess.
Yeah, and they tried.
Um,
The Jets tried to keep him. It sounded like they didn't. They didn't
yeah,
want to let him go. They were like, "We'll sign you to the 53. Don't
yeah,
leave
yeah,
us." He was like,
yeah.
"I'm out of this dumpster fire."
Yeah, no, it's like, hey, I get to go kick. Yeah, 9-0 Chiefs. I'm good.
Right, right,
I'll go.
right.
I'll get to go with them. So yeah, so that's a huge thing. But I, it sucks to see the Bill side of stuff too. So I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, sure. Let's get into it. Got the injury report here. Um, yeah, just it's like every time the Bills almost get healthy this year, they take 3 steps back. They've really been battling some injuries all year. You can see how long the list is. Guys are constantly being nicked up. This is the year of the wrist for the Bills. Um, I've had like 5 guys have wrist injuries, which normally I don't even see that at all year. Couple have had to go to IR, like Dwayne Carter, the defensive tackle rookie. He's on IR
Oh
still
dang, I didn't realize that honestly.
from a wrist. Yeah, and he's been playing. He was playing really well.
Right.
Um, so Coleman is out this week. Keon Coleman, the rookie wide receiver, he's got a wrist. They're being real quiet with his. The Bills try not to give a lot of information out, but he hasn't been wearing like a cast or a brace or anything. But he's been working on the side with trainers, so not participating at all with the team. Missed last week with this injury, and now he's going to miss this week. A lot of people just think that after the bye he'll be fine and he'll come back and play versus San Francisco. But it's definitely something to watch because they've asked if he's going to go on IR, and McDermott kind of just dodges it and says, we'll see, we're taking it day by day. Um, so hopefully they're just being cautious with him. You definitely don't want to re-aggravate a wrist. The other wrist injury here is Amari Cooper. He actually has a cast on his wrist, and that's what pretty much held him out last week, as far as it was a pain tolerance thing, and he was having trouble catching the ball. Um, this week he worked in with Josh Allen, and it looks like it's doing better, and he said he's definitely going to play. So it looks like he's good to go, but he is wearing a hard cast. They've kind of cut out a lot of space around his hand and thumb, so he does have movement in his fingers and everything like that. And it's not like a super bulky cast, but you'll definitely notice his glove really doesn't fit right, and you could see a little bit of the cast there. So I'm wondering how much that bothers him, and if he has a full workload. It's definitely something to monitor. Press coverage might be a little difficult, stuff like that. Maybe they'll use him in motion more, but just having him out there is a huge threat to any defense. So I'm not sure if it'll be more of a decoy thing, or they'll put him in motion a lot, or if he's really just fine and good to go. Um, and the cast is staying on more for protection. So
I think he's a huge X factor in this game.
for
Because
sure.
if you have him, the Chiefs really have a huge hole in the secondary at the second cornerback position. And I know we're going to get into it, but Trent McDuffie and Khalil Shakur are kind of made for each other, and that's going to be a
Yeah.
matchup. And
Yeah.
so, if there's any, if Cooper's in it, he's going to be facing. I don't think, they're not going to want someone else playing Shakir. I think that's just going to play into, Shakir's strengths, not having a guy like McDuffie on him. So
Yep.
I think Cooper could be a huge X factor if he's available, even if, yeah, maybe he's not 100%, just being available kind of. I don't know. The Chiefs' second cornerback since Jalen Watson has gone down has been a huge problem. Jalen Watson is on IR, has been for a few weeks, and I mean, if you kind of look at these last few Chiefs games, the defense has definitely not has been as stout as it was the first half of the year.
Yeah, it's been Johnson, right? Is that who's been?
Right, Najee Johnson, and he's
Yeah.
a second-year player that is just now playing, or a third-year player, excuse me, is just now playing for the first time. He was injured all last year, and his rookie year, he was just a special teams guy. So, definitely not a typical Chiefs corner either. He's not a big, they like to have their lengthy guys, bigger
Yeah.
guys. He's kind of a smaller guy that is supposed to maybe be a little better for the coverage aspect of it, but he's had a few, not rookie moments, obviously, but, young moments this year.
I was surprised that they moved McDuffie outside. We'll get into more of that later. I don't want to
Yeah,
kill too
yeah.
much of that. All right, so The other major injury on offense, well, I guess there's two more for the Bills on offense is Kincaid. He's ruled out with a knee. Um, it was one of those weird injuries. Like Josh missed him on a deep shot that if they connect, it's a for sure touchdown. It was a little bit of a blown coverage, and he dove for it and landed on his knee, and he wore a brace after that and tried to come back in the game, and it wasn't right. And so no one's really sure yet the extent of the injury. Like, is it a bone bruise? Is it bursitis? No one's really said anything. They said they're going to be cautious with it. I'm guessing it's more of a why risk it. Put him on, have him sit out this game. Then we have the bye week next week, and hopefully he'll come back healthy. He's definitely a big piece, though, not to be in this game. We'll definitely dive into that more later. The other big one on offense is Spencer Brown, their right tackle. He sprained his ankle last game, came back in and finished the game, but as we know with ankles, they swell up after the game and can linger and be worse, during the week. So he did get a limited practice in Friday. My guess is it'll be how did he respond to that practice? How is his recovery? How's the ankle look? Maybe test it out Sunday morning and be kind of a game time decision. If he doesn't go, it'll be Ryan Vandemark. He was their swing tackle last year. And he's been good, but he's been better on the left side. So we'll see. He's at least experienced, but Spencer Brown's been playing at a really high level, and so that would be a big loss if he can't go.
Yeah, well, and I would say on that too. I know we'll get into it later again, but Chris Jones likes to play on that right side on pass downs. So if they get into third and longs, that's where Chris Jones wants to play.
Yep.
Spencer Brown's a good matchup for Chris Jones because he's huge, but
Yep.
ankle, something like that where you're just not feeling 100%, against a guy like Chris Jones, that could be
Right. It's
could
hard
be
to set
trouble.
the anchor. I mean, it doesn't matter who you put out there. Chris Jones he's dominated Deion Dawkins before. So
He's a
our
freak,
left
man.
tackle. Yeah,
It's
he is.
ridiculous.
He's a game wrecker. That's really it. I mean, the other one to talk about, is Matt Milano. They opened his IR window back up, and so we're looking to get him back maybe for the San Francisco game after the bye. That one's just kind of big, more for if we see each other in the playoffs. But he's an All-Pro caliber linebacker and hasn't really played in what, a year and a half now. So
I know.
getting him back would be really big for this Bills team. So a lot of Bills fans are excited about that. All right. Now to get into some of the data and the trends. It's going to go over like some of the EPA for each team. It's kind of set the scene for the offenses and defenses. Let me know if anything stands out to you, and we can talk about it. But I'll just run through these. So Bills offensive EPA, they're third in pass, second in rush. They average they're 16th in yards per carry. So, but as far as effectiveness per play, they're second. Um, Bills defense is 14th against the pass, 8th against the rush, but they do allow the 29th worst yards per carry. So the per carry basis, they haven't been great. A lot of that is by design, though, and when it really matters, they do lock down and defend the run pretty well. Um, Kansas City offense is 10th pass EPA, 12th rush EPA, but they are 30th in yards per carry. So a lot of that is volume stuff. We'll get into more of that for sure.
Well, yeah, and I'll say real quick, yeah, they're fourth in success rate. For a lot of the season, they were first or in rushing success rate, excuse me. A lot of the season, they were first in rushing success rate. It has been, the charts are hilarious where it's, explosive runs compared to, success rate. And it's just like they are at the very, very corner of no explosive at
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
but still getting it done in terms of, EPA, getting what you need on each down. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been as grinding out as Kareem Hunt coming back has just been, just a grind out guy. And so that speaks to the 30th in yards per carry. I think they are also last in the NFL in 10 plus yard runs this year.
Yep, they are. Yep. And I think we're like 28th or something like that in giving up explosive runs. So,
Mm.
uh, Kansas City defense, 22nd pass and fourth against the rush, but they allow the second least yards per carry. So, been
Well,
really
yeah,
good
and
against the run.
yeah, well, here's what I wanted to point out in this segment, and it's a huge matchup in any game, obviously, but especially in a game where the Bills may be kind of hampered by their skill position players. You get them in a third and longs more. The Chiefs are the NFL's leader in first down rushes, yards per carry allowed. They allow like 3.1. I'm making sure 3.4 yards per carry this year on first downs. So they lead the league in that category. Definitely do a good job this entire season of just making sure those first down runs are either getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage or even sometimes making negative plays on first down, right, and really
Yep.
putting offenses behind the behind schedule, I should say. So yeah, that's been a huge key to the Chiefs defense this year, is just really trying to not let first down runs get to 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, really making it 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, really trying to make them second and
That's a
long.
good call out for this game because the Bills have really liked to run on first down, especially early in the year.
Mm.
Um, they were, I mean, in one game, I want to say it was like week 2 or week 3, they were like 98% first down run rate, but
Oh wow.
they've been around 70% for a lot of the year. Um, now that has, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, he completely flipped the switch. Brady did, and it was like 40%, and a lot of play action on first down. So he's a big trend guy, and he likes to set certain trends on purpose and then flip it around. So I'll be interested to see this game because the Bills have liked to run on first down a lot, stay on schedule, and like you said, get in second and medium and third and short.
Right.
Um, and so I think that's a good matchup between the two. The Bills haven't allowed a lot of negative runs either on offense. Their success rate's really high, and they at least get a yard or two on first down runs. So I think that's definitely a big matchup in this game. Is how does Kansas City want to defend first down, and then how do the Bills want to attack them on first down? I wouldn't be surprised if this was more of a throwing game for the Bills on first down, especially they like to do an extension of a lot like Kansas City too, an extension of their run game in the pass game. So, easy access, quick throws, wide receiver screens, stuff like that, tunnel screens. So we'll see if that is more of a thing this week.
Well, and two, I would say the Chiefs defense, you want to attack them passing on first downs because the linebackers, I feel like they are not Jekyll and Hyde almost, but just when they are attacking downhill, they are some of the
Yeah.
best linebackers in the NFL. But when they do have to kind of retreat play into space, especially in those base packages where all three of them are on the field at the same time, you can find ways to exploit them. That's why the Dalton Kincaid miss is huge.
Right.
Another stat, I guess, just in this segment, Chiefs have allowed the most receiving yards to tight ends this year. So
Yep.
Dawson Knox, I still think could be a impactful player in this game even without Kincaid.
Yeah, no, it's a good call out and definitely something we're gonna get to. And Knox, yeah, has traditionally done well against the Chiefs. He's had some good games against them. So,
Yeah, true.
all right, so third down. Let's get to that. Bills' offense is 15th on third down success. Fourth down, they're first, and red zone, they're seventh. Chiefs' defense is 19th on third down, 10th on fourth down, and 13th in red zone. Chiefs offense is first on third down, second on fourth down, and 17th in red zone. Bills defense is 21st on third down, fifth on fourth down, and eighth in red zone percentage. So I think there's going to be a lot of long drives this game, and
Yeah.
it's going to come down to who can score touchdowns, not field goals in the red zone. What's kind of been going on with the Chiefs as far as in the red zone? They're normally been a really good offense in the red zone, but it seems like this year they're more middle of the pack. Has that been maybe some of the wide receiver injuries and Pacheco and stuff like that, or what have you seen from the red zone offense this year?
No, for sure. It started last year. I mean, the Chiefs, even when they were winning down the stretch last year in the postseason, they settled in the red zone a lot and trusted Butker to just, get the 3 points, trust their defense to get stops and allow those 3 points to, still be significant. because I think Mahomes is a little conservative in the red zone. He's not the type of guy to test tight windows. It'll happen every once in a while, but I think it's really like him like telling himself, okay, I got to do this. Like it's not something he likes to do. Now that they have D Hop, he feels a little better. They had a better red zone success rate against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. His kind of first game as a full time receiver. But last week, resorted back to settling for field goals 3 out of 4 times in the red zone. It's definitely something that is a big key to this game, especially without Butker, is finishing these drives. The Chiefs average the longest time of possession per drive in the NFL this year. They are sustaining drives, but not finishing them as much as they need to. So that's a huge part of this game, finding ways to, because they're not punching the ball in. They're running. We kind of talked about it. They're running the ball well. You talked about how the Bills can kind of, stop the run when they need to. I think they are the kind of offense that gets stopped when they need to. In the red zone, they don't necessarily punch it all in. They have to rely on the pass once they get down there, or trickery. Andy Reid's deep bag of red zone stuff. So all that to say, huge part of this game is the Chiefs finishing those long drives. But you're right, there is going to be long drives in this game. I think on both sides.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of explosive plays in this game, but we'll see. This rivalry, if you want to call it, has been very surprising as far as that. Both teams will come in doing something, and then in the game it'll go completely different. So we'll see if that happens again. Turnover differential, the Bills are number 1 in the NFL in turnover differential. They're plus 13. They have 19 takeaways, 6 giveaways. The Chiefs are 22nd in the NFL in turnover differential. They're minus 4. They only have 8 takeaways, and they have 12 giveaways. I kind of feel, though, takeaways are a little bit there's luck there. They go in bunches, and with the personnel the Chiefs have, I think they're due for takeaways. Hopefully, it's not this week. But have you seen anything there, or has that been a talking point at all, trying to cause more turnovers at all?
I think it's a matter of the fact that the pass rush really hasn't been as impactful this year. 4-man pass rush. The blitz has to really be the one to bring it, and so yeah, those end in sacks a lot of times. You're not getting those fumbles in the pocket maybe, or just pressured throws that end up being kind of ducks that turn into interceptions. I think quarterbacks have been a little too comfortable against this Chiefs 4-man rush this year, and that speaks to it. And so with the, again, the Chiefs secondary is banged up with the second cornerback. So I don't necessarily see it, that it's going to, maybe the tide is turning. If anything, it's really the other side where the offense just maybe is getting a little cleaner, not turning the ball over as much. But I do think the Bills' turnover differential speaks to how disciplined their zone coverage is, how tight of windows they make them, make a lot of the time. And again, I just talk about Mahomes I think he will, get himself into a mode, especially in these kind of games where he knows he has to test the tight windows and has to just make the throws and kind of just, maybe risk, interceptions. And so I think, a defense like the Bills definitely, I see why they lead the league in, just takeaways in general. So yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year for that. Obviously that I think it's the way the ball bounces too, but they have 2 defensive tackle interceptions on screen plays, and their corners really, yeah, and their corners really haven't had very many. Rasul Douglas has dropped like at least 3 or 4 that I can remember. Benford's dropped 1, and so yeah, it's been interesting. It's been more of the guys that you necessarily wouldn't think, but yeah, they've been really opportunistic. The peanut punch is definitely something that they've done a lot of. They've really done a good job of forcing fumbles. So we'll see. I think turnovers, obviously, in a game like this, are magnified, right? When you have 2, top tier quarterbacks and offenses, you don't want to give them extra chances, and you don't want to lose a possession either, right? So.
Well, yeah, and it could also be, more of a coaching point in games like this where, yeah, we talk about the sustained drives. Like, hey, they might chip away at you, but if you, force that, like you said, peanut punch, or just kind of, really close on a pass so hard that it pops up or whatever. I mean, yeah, it could be, it's a game where it might be more of a focus point for each defense to try to just find a way to create a turnover.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's get into some talking points. I wrote some down. I had some questions for you as far as for the Chiefs. So 9-0, you had said before when we started talking, Chiefs hadn't started 10-0. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. This is the third time franchise history. They started 9-0. All have happened in my lifetime, 2003, 13, and now 24. But yeah, each time they slipped up at that 10th game. So it's a chance to make franchise history. And so that's this. I will say this team, Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, they all, I think, appreciate the history of the game. So that's why I think this is a big game, even if people want to make the argument that, they have the margin for error to lose a game like this, or it's not important because they're going to match up in the playoffs anyway. I think this team will treat it like a big game because of that.
So let's get into some of the context for that then. So what does this game mean for Chiefs Kingdom as far as, this is the eighth matchup between Allen and Mahomes. The Bills have won the last three in the regular season. Chiefs win it every time in the postseason. But what does this game mean for a Chiefs fan, like on the calendar, when they see the Bills game coming up?
I mean, it's always a good game. I mean, you as a Chiefs fan, unfortunately, you get spoiled where, there's some of these just ugly, kind of not fun games to watch because, the Chiefs aren't necessarily all in. They're kind of maybe, Andy Reid loves to go vanilla on offense in certain games, and then maybe it closer than it needs to be. But in games like this where, the Bills are going to be there at the end, so you want to have that tiebreaker advantage. That's the one thing, the Bills win this game. They're within one game of the Chiefs all of a sudden in the AFC playoff race. And yeah, you can say, oh, they have the Lions and Niners still to go. And so, but the Chiefs have, the Chargers still to come who are playing really good football. The Steelers are playing good football. The Texans. I mean, we have games as well that we could slip up and Buffalo could come in for that one seed, which is still important. You still want to play at home in January. I know maybe it's just
Right.
that last year, we still got you on Buffalo, but it's still important to be playing those home games. So that's where
Yeah,
I think,
one less game in the playoffs too, right? I mean that there is
right.
something
That's
about
a
that,
huge
right?
advantage now.
Yeah.
Huge advantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, and I think that's what really hurt the Bills last year too in the playoffs is the game before the Chiefs game. All the Bills got decimated by injuries. I mean, they were
That's
on like
true.
their sixth linebacker
Yeah.
was starting.
God, that
They
was
called the
crazy.
guy
Yeah.
off of the couch. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a big one for sure. Is the one seed. What about the undefeated season? I've heard them talk about that more and be open about it. What have you guys seen? Is that where would you rank things as far as tiers? Like, is the undefeated season or the three-peat? Which one is more important? Do you think? And
Well,
as far as
obviously,
lore,
yeah, it's the three-peat, but my podcast co-host and I have been kind of joking that, yeah, if and you've been saying it for a few weeks that, like, if they get to this Bills game and they get out of that 10-0, like, I'll start talking about the undefeated season because, we are talking about, it is weird to talk about, as someone that grew up when it was terrible being a Chiefs fan. Being a Bills fan,
hmm
you had stretches where it was just like, what the heck is going on? But this Chiefs team is, a dynasty, and they are a historic, all-time kind of franchise at this point, or just kind of, an all-time run. you know what if they, push that undefeated thing? This team is just, I don't, they haven't played well to this point, but they are kind of catching a rhythm, kind of getting guys back where, yeah, if they, again, if they get past this Bills game somehow, I'll start talking about it, but we haven't really entertained it, on our side at least. But yeah, they play the Panthers after this game, and then,
hmm
there's so it's, you can start flirting with it a little bit, but I would still say obviously three-peat is what, never happened in NFL history. So that's where everyone's head's at for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to cap it off too, right? I mean, you go undefeated and three-peat. You're talking greatest teams of all time, right? Or the greatest. So that's quite the accomplishment and probably worth it. We had kind of touched on it before the show here, like, if it does come down to week 17, week 18, right? Like that's normally where you rest guys. You start talking about, injury stuff and how can we get you healed up. But, if you're going for, if you're 16-0, it's all out, right? And then
Well,
you're gonna have the one seed too, right? So you're gonna have a bye.
and yeah, right. And that's where, again, the history part where, Andy Reid is a historian of the game, and Kelsey is just, and Mahomes and this core of this team has done so much that, they would maybe look at that, 17-0 potential and just, maybe it does motivate them more than a team that is maybe just trying to get to the Super Bowl the first time happens to be, 9-0, or if they get further than that, maybe they're like, oh, we don't care as much. We just want to, be ready for the Super Bowl. I do think this team, and hopefully it doesn't, make, trip them up in the postseason ability. But yeah, no, they got to get past this game first. But history is fun. It's been fun to be making history in Chiefs Kingdom for sure.
Yeah, I bet. I would definitely wouldn't be complaining.
No,
From the
sir.
Bills side, a lot of people have been asking, like, what does this game mean for the Bills? And honestly, it's not. I think at this point, it's not that different from just a regular game or a regular AFC game. Yes, it matters for seeding, right? But is it different than the Ravens or the Texans game for us? It's about the same at this point. We had kind of talked about it a little bit. Like the Bills have won the last three regular season matchups between these two teams, and what has that meant for either team, right? Nothing for the Bills, and it sure hasn't affected the Chiefs at all. So, I think for a lot of Bills fans, it's yes, we want to beat the Chiefs because that's the measuring stick, right, in the NFL, but it's as far as like impact and stuff like that. I don't think it's that much. I don't think it affects the Bills' season that much. I think if the Bills only had one loss, it would matter more. Or like you mentioned, their upcoming slate. The Bills have a really tough slate. I mean, they got
Yeah.
San Francisco coming out of the bye. They got the Rams. They got Detroit.
Mm.
Um, and so, like, yeah, we can talk about the one seed if they win this game, but they got to take care of business, multiple times still ahead with really tough matchups. So, um, I don't think people are too much talking about the one seed right now. I think it's just more of this, let's go 1-0 this week. It's just we got to
Yeah.
stack wins. And if you asked Bills fans coming into the season too, I don't think anyone was predicting the Bills to be 8-2 right now and be even talking about a chance at the one seed. This was supposed to be the rebuild. This was the schedule is brutal. A lot of road games, really tough matchups. And so I think a lot of people thought the Bills would be 6-4 right now. Even people were 5-5 and just trying to claw a wild card or fighting for our division. So kind of playing with house money at this point for a lot of Bills fans, and it's a nice place to be sitting at right now and not having to really stress about this game as far as impacting the rest of the season.
Well, and the injuries play into that too. I mean, both
For
sides are going to
sure.
look so much different by the time January. Like if they match up again, those sides are going to
Yeah.
have much more availability, just kind of be able to do more. So, you mentioned Matt Milano. I mean, yeah, he hasn't been able to play in this matchup for a while, and he's like almost maybe the biggest factor against a team that loves to use Kelsey. I mean, he
For
would.
sure.
So yeah, no, I think that's a good point that like when these teams match up later, and they will, or they, if I mean, they're the top two teams in the AFC, in my opinion. I know the Ravens have played well this year, but I think they're a little fraudulent, in my opinion, defensively. So all that to say, I agree with you. I think it's much more. There's going to be a lot more different in the postseason matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think if one thing that we've learned is you guys know well about it is the way Andy Reid plays this game as well, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't play his cards, right? And if he does, then the next time they play each other, he's got a completely different offense ready to go. I mean,
Yeah.
last year was a perfect example of that, right? Like you guys get into the playoffs and all of a sudden it's three tight ends and a lot of big bodies and power football. When earlier in the year it was more spreading stuff out, and we didn't really see that in the first matchup. So he's always got different wrinkles, and I think he definitely saves stuff for the playoffs, especially against this Bills team. He seems to always have something new in their second matchup in the playoffs. So again, like I think this obviously is a big game. It's two of the best quarterbacks in football. Mahomes is obviously the best, and so it's a great matchup from that perspective, and they've had some great duels. But as far as context for the season, like I'm not sure it's the means that much. Well, a lot of other things have to happen for it to come back and mean more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I think that's explained well, honestly. Again, if the teams were a little more healthy, maybe you could make the argument that yeah, you learn a lot about each other, but there may not be much to learn. It may be a
Right.
kind of a lot of running, a lot of try to just sustain drives and try to keep the other team off the field, and just maybe not have the. it's going to be a close game. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that.
That's how they like to play it. All right, so let's get into the trenches a little bit. So the Kansas City defense, they're 26th in the NFL with 19 sacks, 11th in pass rush win rate. So for people who don't know, pass rush win rate, that's for the defensive line. So just your 4 defensive linemen, how they have done against their one-on-one matchups. 11th in that. And then they're 11th in run stop win rate. So same thing, like how do they do against defeating the block in front of them? Chris Jones is number 1 in defensive tackles, run stop win rate. No surprise there. And then going against the Bills offense, who've allowed the second least amount of sacks at 13. They're 4th in pass block win rate and 20th in run block win rate. A lot of that is, I think, for the run blocking is more like they don't do a lot of just like straight blocking, like the guy in front of them. A lot of what they pull a lot of guys. They run a lot of wide zone. They do a lot of double team stuff like that. And so it's always funny for me on the ESPN rankings for run block win rate. They don't really grade out too great, but they're a pretty good run blocking unit. And then the main guy on their offensive line is their left tackle, Deion Dawkins. He's 15th in pass block win rate for tackles. So as far as Kansas City defense versus the Bills offense, I don't think you can really talk about it without starting with Chris Jones, right? I mean, arguably the best defensive tackle in football right now with Aaron Donald out. When he gets rolling, he's a force. They like to move him all over, outside, inside. And he's been a game wrecker even against the Bills. You look in the playoff game, if he doesn't get that pressure on Dawkins and force Josh Allen to throw off his back foot, that game probably goes differently. So what have you seen so far this year, and what are you looking for in this matchup?
Man, I will say that when the season started, it seemed like the defensive front was kind of on a tear. Chris Jones, obviously, but a guy like Tershawn Wharton, the other inside rusher, the second inside rusher we like to use on pass downs, he's kind of started to play more of all downs because he's just been a really disruptive player. But he's kind of slowed down a little bit the last few weeks. This 4-man pass rush has definitely kind of not gotten the job done, I would say. It's really the pass rush has really been relying on blitzing, which Spags is amazing at. It's his bread and butter. He
You guys
really
blitz like the 3rd or 4th highest rate in the NFL, which that was surprising to me.
Which yeah, because honestly, usually the rate isn't that high for the entire season. It's usually lower than that. That they just blitz maybe situationally well. But this year, especially lately, they've had to kind of almost blitz almost every 3rd down. It seems like, and they've had success doing it. But against a quarterback like Josh Allen, who I made a note in our pregame article, he's a 128 passer rating versus the blitz this year.
Yep.
I believe 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions against the blitz. That's what I read. So it's definitely not someone you want to blitz too much, and so you want to rely more on the 4-man pass rush. And on pass downs, Chris Jones does like to go out against that right tackle. So if Spencer Brown is not feeling great, Chris Jones could get a little penetration there. But the real key matchup in that situation, because you're going to give Chris Jones attention, would be George Karlaftis on the opposite side. He needs to be able to – he has kind of come on a little lately. He's had a few sacks lately. He needs to really, get some wins against Deion Dawkins and really make himself, be felt because he is a first-round pick. It's his 3rd year. He has had big moments, but this is a really key – game where the Bills' offensive line is very good. Josh Allen's very good at avoiding pressure, obviously. And so you really need to actually win your rush one-on-one, actually get into the pocket and actually wrap up the quarterback and not let him, get away. So it's huge for Karlaftis this game that he, gets some penetration against Deion Dawkins.
Yeah, it's a good point against the blitz. Brady's done a really good job building in answers for Josh, and Josh has done a really good job pre-snap identifying blitz. But Spags, man, has a really good, he's done a really good job, dialing them up and simulated pressures and the cover 0 looks and, bailing out when you think he's going to come. And so I think that cat and mouse is going to be interesting.
No, you mentioned the simulated pressures. Yeah, like technically, he's blitzing without sending more than 4. But still, he is sending additional rushers a lot more, recently. Against the Broncos, there was 2 3rd downs in the second half where he just all outed them and just forced Nix to throw it away pretty much or just have no chance.
I think that's where Cooper's is big or nice to have
Right.
back. As far as a guy that Josh can trust that should win his one-on-one, that had been Keon Coleman for a little bit this year. He'd kind of been going to him when he was getting blitzed, and Keon was doing a really good job of at least, if he didn't create separation, he was winning his 50-50 battle. And they don't Bills don't really have someone like that, and so that's why they went for and got Cooper. Is so in that situation, Josh, feels like he can go to somebody. Now that did get him in trouble in Seattle, where Cooper slipped, and that was one of Josh's interceptions. But yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting to me is on key downs. When Spags brings that pressure, how do the Bills handle it? And they've struggled against stunts and games inside and passing
Mm.
guys off. It's not so much their one-on-one blocking. Every once in a while, Dawkins will get beat by like a speed move or something like that, and Spencer Brown. But for the majority, they're really good one on one, and even the interior guys. But it's when they're passing guys off and there's stunts going on, the communication hasn't been there earlier in the year. It's gotten better the last few weeks. Last week they did a really good job with it, but they're going to get tested, man. Spags knows how to find the cracks and the weaknesses. And so that's something to watch too. Like, do they move Chris Jones around? Do they use, Wharton to kind of crash inside more and then
Yeah.
loop a guy around? That's worked. But you risk losing containment in that. And so with a
Right.
guy like Josh, right, if you're not disciplined and you're not in your lane, like just like Mahomes, they thrive on that. They want that chaos, right? They
Yeah.
want to be able to get out and then create. And so d- do you think they're gonna spy Josh again? Like I know in the playoffs they had
Right.
Tranquil spying him a lot, and that seemed to really work as far as play coverage. And then you rush Tranquil when the play kind of breaks down a little bit. Do you see that happening again, or do you think
Yeah.
Spags will switch it up and do something different this time?
No, I think for everything I just said about the four-man rush, it is definitely something that I think he will even do the three, obviously three rushers and then the spy as the fourth rusher that's kind of chilling. I think that's just a way, again, I talked about the linebackers earlier. That's their strength is playing downhill, playing what's in front of
Mm-hmm.
them, kind of just attacking instead of, trying to really, drop back and kind of read what's behind them. And so, yeah, I think it's just a way to utilize guys like Tranquil, Bolton, even Chenal. I think Chenal may even be it. I think Chenal, he's really come on as just an all around, just whatever you
He's a
got to do around
freak,
the line of
man.
scrimmage. No, I know.
He's a freak.
The blocked field goal was just the tip of the iceberg, man. He's been fun to kind of watch develop, and Spags is the perfect defensive coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
to give him opportunities to do the different things he can do. But he also isn't the best in space, so it might have to be a guy like Tranquil again. But he is probably their best coverage linebacker, so it is a
Yeah.
Willie Gay was kind of handled it a few times in the past, and he was I think he was really good at that. I think that was kind of he's just so fast. He's a lot
Yeah.
faster than a lot of other linebackers. Drew Tranquil is quick, I would say, but maybe not as fast. And so I could see Josh kind of exploiting if they get too cute with some of those spies and but I do think it's a huge thing they'll do. Yeah, I don't think they'll switch it up from that. I think you'll see plenty of spying.
That's a really good point though, because you don't want Nick Bolton in coverage and
Right.
Leo
No. Yeah. Nick
Chenal
Bolton.
too. I mean,
It's
as good of
it's
an athlete as he is, but you don't want him chasing running back in space like a James Cook or So um, I'm interested there because I think that is an area that the Bills will want to exploit. They like getting their running backs out in space and tight ends as well. They'll have them in line to block and then they'll release them out. So I'm interested to see if they keep Tranquil as a spy. Like that kind of opens up that running backs and tight ends leaking out. So
for sure.
that's gonna be interesting cat and mouse because yeah, I don't think you want to see James Cook running around in space, but at the same time you don't really want to see Josh Allen running around in space either.
No, I
So
I could see the Chiefs going really light with their fronts on pass downs where it's
a lot of
dime,
coverage. Yeah.
it's even like, Leo Chenal is one of the three rushers and then plus a spy. Like you're really just
Right.
getting a lot of safeties and linebackers on the field because they like their safety group. They have a fourth rookie safety, Jaden Hicks. They're trying to get more on the field.
Mm.
He's been playing those dime downs, kind of just, making plays. So I could see them really going light and just saying, hey, we'll if we sacrifice a little bit of the pass rush, Josh, we'll try to just corral on everything, and try to I could see
Yeah,
that kind of being the case.
that's a good call. I could definitely see that. Three linemen and then Tranquil as your spy, and he's really good at blitzing as well. So
He
that
is, yeah, he is.
that would make a lot of sense. All right, we'll flip it around. We'll do Kansas City offense and Bills defense. Kansas City offense is 23rd. They've allowed 20 sacks. They're fifth in pass block win rate and first in run block win rate. Normally, when I do this, a team has like one offensive lineman, maybe two on here. When we did the Colts, Chiefs have four offensive linemen in the top 10 in their respective groups. So, right tackle Jawan Taylor's 10th in pass block win rate. Center Creed Humphrey is third in pass block win rate and sixth in run block win rate. Joe Tooney is fourth in pass block win rate, and Trey Smith is seventh in run block win rate. So no surprise there. Chiefs O line is up there in football. You mentioned their one weakness might be left tackle or just the tackles in general, but that interior three is the best in football, and it's probably not very close. They're outstanding. Bills defense, they're 12th with 25 sacks. They're 15th in pass rush win rate and third in run stop win rate. Deanne Greg Rousseau is 17th in pass rush win rate. Defensive tackle Daquan Jones is 12th in pass rush win rate. And then Ed Oliver's been coming on lately. He's 15th in pass rush win rate and 10th in run stop win rate. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great matchup. Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones have not showed up in this matchup the last 2 years, so that interior has really shut them down. I think it's gonna come down to the edges here. Von Miller is back after his suspension, and when he's played, he's been really good. Against the run as well, but rushing the passer, he's been creating pressures, and he looks to be, I don't know about vintage Vaughn, but he is
Oh
certainly
boy.
very effective. So
Well,
that's something to watch because this is the kind of game where they've been holding back his snaps. He probably gets 30% of the snaps, maybe less, depending on the situations. But this could be a game where they unleash him, and we saw last year in the early season matchup where he was the difference in that game essentially. So I think him on right tackle, Jawan Taylor, is going to be a great matchup, is probably how I see it going. And then Greg Rousseau will be on who's ever on the left side, Wanye Morris, or if he can't play the whole game, whoever the backup is. And
right.
so those are going to be something to watch because, as you know, if you can compress the pocket on Mahomes, that's pretty key.
Oh, absolutely. And last week it just all fell apart when Wanya Morris went out. And it felt like we were playing Von Miller because Nick Bonito, the Broncos edge rusher, who is
Yeah,
definitely coming on.
similar
Yeah.
style player though, for
Yeah.
sure.
He just, I mean, there was a couple times Kingsley didn't even touch him. Kingsley Suamataia, the BYU offensive tackle, picked in the second round. I think he proved that he needs a redshirt year last week, and so they still didn't get any sort of emergency backup for Wanye. It's still going to be Kingsley if Wanye continues to have this injury linger for him. And I said, oh boy, when you were talking about Von Miller, because I did not like to hear that he's looking maybe pretty spry,
Hmm.
because he is the absolute matchup to beat. Even Wanye Morris, who's played really solid this year, I think he just struggles against speed. He really just kind of struggles to get back in his set. I think he can take on like a Russo. Honestly, I think is a decent matchup for Wanye. He's longer. He's a little bigger. He can do a lot. He's a good player. But I think the longer players, Wanye kind of because he's a long player himself, he can kind of just catch guys and he's a solid player. But man, those speed rushers can give him trouble. So Vaughn's feeling spry off the line. I would put him against Wanye a few times on third downs, and because I will say the Raiders game a few weeks ago, Wanye had 4 penalties. He gave up a sack really easy it was a Tyree Wilson off the
Oh,
edge.
nice. Yeah.
So all that to say, Wanye has had his moments this year where he looks like a second-year offensive tackle picked in the third round. And so, I think he's been solid for the most part, but a guy like Von Miller, if he's feeling good, I think is a really like the perfect mismatch, I guess, for him. Jawan just has all these penalties, but he is playing solid this year. I think he can handle himself, against whoever he goes against. But either way, I think that left tackle is where the Bills need to attack with whoever's feeling good this game.
Yeah, another guy to call out for the Bills is AJ Epinesa. He's another edge rusher for them. He seemed to step up in the Chiefs games, and he's a guy that can do speed as well and kind of dip and but long arm and power guy. When he gets rolling, he gets rolling for a stretch of games. So I'll be interested to see if this is kind of a game where we see some of him. Um, the Bills don't normally spy, and they don't normally do it against Mahomes. So I'm interested to see this game is like what their pass rush plan is and trying to contain him and keep him in the pocket. Not that he's not effective there, but we all know you get Mahomes or Josh, buying more time and on the run, and it gets scary with the explosive plays they can create. So I'm interested to see if the Bills try to keep their edges and their tackles more containing him and doing more compression style rushing. Um, I'm not sure because it hasn't worked necessarily in the past because their interior guys just haven't been able to get a ton of pressure.
Yeah, I think you just got to trust the four-man rush. I mean, honestly, I don't really think a guy like Joe Tooney has been that great this year. I think he's starting to show his age a little bit, especially in pass blocking, where he's just, he's never been the biggest guy. So I think, when you get a little older, maybe you're not as, you can't sit down as much and kind of use your technique to just overpower someone. Because the Vita Vea Kalijah Cansey duo gave the Chiefs a lot of trouble in that Tampa game. It was Mahomes holding the ball onto the ball a little bit. But all that to say, no, I think you don't want to blitz Mahomes. The Broncos made that mistake last week. They were doing so well all week with the four-man or all game with the four-man rush, and then fourth quarter blitz him on a third and long D hop for 30 yards. Like, just don't do it. Just
Yeah.
trust your four-man rush. This offensive line hasn't been that clean this year, and Mahomes honestly hasn't really helped them that much with his pocket presence at times. So I would just try to trust your guys up front and keep your coverage sound.
Yeah, that's one interesting thing about a guy like Mahomes and even Josh Allen as well. I feel like when you blitz them, you almost make it easier for them just because
Yeah,
you
big time.
simplify the rules, right? Like they know, okay, I got to get the ball here, right? Like instead of them wanting to create, wanting to, run around and make big plays, it's okay, I got to speed it up here and I got to go here. Yeah, it makes it simple. And so, yeah, I never liked blitzing Josh or Mahomes on big downs, right? Like
Yeah,
randomly is
I
great,
know.
right? Like throwing, switching up the picture, throwing random stuff at them on first or second down is fine. But yeah, on those critical like third downs, it's just I don't. Yeah, it makes it too simple, man. I don't like it, and I don't like relying on just a one-on-one matchup or something somewhere.
Yeah,
That's where Josh has had some of those big throws to Gabe Davis and Knox in the past. Is when
yeah.
Spags is kind of sold out on those blitzes and left guys, on islands.
Very true. No, yeah, it's both sides. I think this game just that's why again going back to it, just it'll be long drives, sustaining drives. I feel like it could, yeah, just be really, each offense, yeah, just kind of, not testing it too much, and each defense really not, blitzing too much and trying to make a play in coverage, and if the quarterbacks play well, yeah, it could be kind of a boring kind of, long game.
Right. All right. Well, that's the trenches. Um, what about little skill position mismatch? We'll hit that pretty quickly here as we've covered most of it. But as far as the Chiefs trying to figure it out on offense, they're working in Juju. D Hop and him haven't even played. So what are you going to see from that offense as far as from those guys and Kelsey is starting to come on as well? Like what are you expecting to see? How are they going to line those guys up in
Yeah,
this matchup?
I mean, you said it earlier. I mean, it's pretty simple, honestly. The Bills just they like to kind of play. They're not going to maybe man you up as much as maybe other teams do. They'll play zone. They'll play their disciplined zone coverage. And the Chiefs getting Juju back, it just gives them Kelsey, Juju, Hopkins, all guys, veteran guys that are good at getting into zone windows. Finding the windows to just get short to intermediate throws. One stat I have is the Bills defense has allowed the lowest average depth of target in the NFL this year. I think
Hmm.
that speaks to kind of that discipline, that kind of sound defense that doesn't allow, intermediate to deep as much. And so that's where the Chiefs are going to try to push y'all with Xavier Worthy. But I really feel like it's going to be a big decoy game for him. Last week was not a decoy game. He had a few opportunities to make plays. Mahomes didn't connect with him. It was kind of annoying. And I know Bills country probably loves that, or Bills Mafia loves that. Xavier Worthy not producing as much. But I do think he's going to be big decoy this game. Try to push those safeties. Try to just open up windows for Kelsey, D Hop, Juju underneath. I think they'll all play all three play at the same time a lot of the time to really take advantage of that. And you'll see kind of the Chiefs just try to chip away. And if Mahomes plays disciplined, if he just plays patient, doesn't force anything as much, or just maybe not take as many risks. He will have to take risks though against this defense, but that's the ideal game plan, right? Is just to space everyone out and then find one of those three guys who's going to find a window to get open for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a week to play more man coverage and to switch things up, I think it's this week for sure. I think the Bills corners can totally match up against the Chiefs weapons. That's one thing.
That's a good call.
This year.
I would probably advise that. Yeah, I think that would be a good switch up. And the Chiefs haven't played as many, have not. I should say have not succeeded against hot heavy man coverage teams as much this year.
Yeah, and the Bills' outside corners have been really, really good. Benford's been a top 5 corner this year. I mean, he's phenomenal. Rasul Douglas is still the same Rasul Douglas, really, really good player. Now he's better in zone, but I feel like matched up against the D-Hop, a slower guy, is perfect for him. Whereas Benford, you'd put him more on Worthy. And then Taron Johnson against Juju, I'd take that matchup all day. So I'm interested to see if they maybe on certain downs they do matchup man. Any zone eventually turns into man coverage, right? And sometimes against teams like Miami, the Bills will run man off the line, and then they'll drop into zones after they disrupt the routes and the timing, and so there's different stuff that they could do. And I think this is a game to do it, because if you just get into your normal drops, Mahomes is going to pick you apart, right? I mean, Juju's phenomenal in zone coverage. Kelsey obviously has made a living off of it, and then D-Hop is really good at it too. So I don't really want this to be a game where the Bills are just dropping back in their zones. I think Mahomes will just pick them apart. That makes it too easy. So I'm interested to see what the Bills have dialed up, and if they do some man coverage and stuff like that, because that could be the difference in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all three of those guys are guys that aren't going to, necessarily create that greatest separation. D-Hop has had a few reps this year with us where he didn't even get the ball, but it was like, oh, wow, that was a nice little separation rep right there. But, maybe against, it was the Bucs backup corners, and the Raiders don't have that great of corners. I think you're right. I think the Bills defense, their defensive backs have the experience, and they're playing well. Force Mahomes. He does not like throwing to tightly covered players, and so I think it really makes him uncomfortable to do that. And so that's where I think it could be a key for Buffalo to kind of switch that up this week.
We shall see. All right, flipping it around to the other side, the Bills offense versus the Chiefs defense. Where do you see some areas that the Bills should try to exploit, or maybe some mismatches?
Yeah, I think Dawson Knox will still have a big presence in this game, because I do think the Chiefs just naturally struggle to defend the flats, defend kind of the up the seam. Their linebackers, kind of talked about it already quite a bit, but they're just not great in space. So giving Dawson Knox, but the really big thing is giving James Cook those opportunities as well. I really feel like you saw, I think it was a couple years ago at Arrowhead, where it might have been last year, where James Cook had those big plays in the passing game.
Yeah.
He
that
had
was
one
last year. Yeah.
Yeah, that touchdown up the seam where he was just wide open. Yeah. That kind of stuff can happen against this defense, and James Cook is the perfect kind of running back to take advantage of it. So yeah, I would say Dawson Knox should still be, as long as Josh Allen feels good about targeting him, I think he should still have a decent game, and James Cook will be a big X factor. I think if Amari Cooper plays, it could change how the Chiefs run their coverage schemes. Last week they bracketed Cortland Sutton in the red zone at times, and that allowed for some open space in the red zone. Mm-hmm. I think you could see some of that stuff where the Chiefs really have to maybe give their second cornerback help against Amari Cooper, because Trent McDuffie is going to be manning up Khalil Shakir, I believe, in the slot. I think it's just a great matchup. I think they should play into that. Yep. And the Chiefs don't really have another slot cornerback if McDuffie doesn't play against him. And so, I think Amari Cooper's huge X factor. If he plays, it's going to dictate the Chiefs' coverage and then give all these other guys I just talked about more space. If he doesn't play, maybe there's more, help for these other guys to, not to be in 1-on-1s as much as possible against James Cook and Khalil Shakir.
I think those are all great points. I think that's part of the frustration of Keon Coleman being out as well. He was really
Yeah,
coming on, and you know the Bills become a handful when you can line up Cooper, Keon, and Shakir. Like
big
those are
time.
three guys that can really win their one on ones, and the Bills really haven't had that outside of Diggs. They haven't had other guys that can really win their one on ones, and so it was nice to see that start to come on this year. So it's a shame that he won't play, but yeah, I think if Cooper's out there, it's a great point. You do not want to leave him alone. You have got to give him help, whether it's safety or whatever. But you cannot leave him one on one outside. So yeah, we'll see. And then I agree with you on the Cook thing. I'm not sure if this is going to be a rushing game for the Bills. This might be one of their lower rushing totals um, this year, unless Josh just kind of goes off and does Josh things. But I think it's going to be one where the running backs are involved in the pass game, and we've seen
Yeah.
that somewhat this year, where the Bills have had running backs. Yeah, they had Ray Davis, the leading receiver, one week. So yeah, I think that's a good call out as far as getting them out in space. And then Knox, yeah, this could be a big Knox game with Kincaid out. So
Yeah, again, Chiefs allow the most receiving yards to tight ends in the NFL. It hasn't
yep,
necessarily had to be a talented tight end to do it. I promise you. And again, some of that is just you're covered everything else. Tight ends, a lot of the safety valve, check down options,
yep,
so it adds up. But it does feel like this team, especially we gave up K Dot and red zone touchdown. He was open. Like it just feels like this team, especially if you man up. Maybe that's where Dawson Knox he isn't the
yeah.
difference maker Dalton Kincaid was, but Justin Reed not very good manned up against tight ends. He's given up some big plays to tight ends, just kind of solo
Mm.
coverage.
Interesting stat I forgot to mention earlier is the Chiefs are like 31st in the league in 0 to 10 yards. Um, as far as coverage and giving up yards. And maybe
Hmm.
that makes sense as far as you were saying, like
Yeah,
tight ends leaking out, running backs leaking out, right? And short yardage. They allow a lot of quick access throws.
yeah,
So yeah, they're 31st in the NFL, and then the Bills I think are like second or first in the NFL as far as on offense that quick yardage throws. They've been doing a lot of that this year. Brady's really incorporated that. Yards after catch have not been a thing for the Bills with Josh Allen. A lot of that was because they've, like Mahomes earlier in his career, they want to work the ball downfield, right? You have these quarterbacks, why not big play hunt. And as Mahomes and Andy Reid have transitioned into more of the quick throw and the yak. The Bills have done that this year, and they've done it really well. And so, like you said with Shakir, like he's been phenomenal after the catch.
yeah.
Kincaid has been another guy who's been really good after the catch, but they've been doing a really good job just with all their weapons, getting them in space. Curtis Samuel, this could be a Curtis Samuel game. He's kind of been coming on a little. He was battling a turf toe and then like a shoulder pec injury, and so he's healthy, and so that could be a big guy we didn't even talk about. I mean, Curtis Samuel is capable of explosive plays. So
Yeah, no, and real quick, I just want to make with not just that the fact that the Chiefs have the injury at cornerback too, they really just like when they go heavy defensive back formations, it's all safeties. Like Chamari Connor plays a lot of slot cornerback for them, but he is a safety.
mm-hmm.
He is not someone that you look at and put in the slot man on man against someone, but he will play in the
Right.
slot. And so yeah, guys like Curtis Samuel, Shakir, if McDuffie for some reason is occupied, if they do want to put him on Cooper on plays, like they're gonna have advantages because this
Correct,
Chiefs
because
team
then they
really
bring
doesn't.
in Hicks,
Yeah,
right,
and he's just
and then you don't want Cook and Reed one-on-one coverage, right? Like they're good in space, they're good, they're I
yeah,
guess their big
big time.
attributes, right, are they can cover the whole field. Like their
Yeah, they got
range
good
is
range.
ridiculous, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Rustin Reed has really good anticipation, but sometimes it does bite him. Sometimes he guesses on plays and then
Mm,
he gives up something. So yeah, I think spreading this team out, using your receivers more, and I think you've been making the point, but yeah, passing the ball, get the ball in space,
yeah.
against this Chiefs defense is the way to do it for sure.
All right, well let's get into some player props then, since we were wrapping up the skill position. So last week, I haven't been doing a review too much. I don't know why, but a couple people have been asking me to kind of do a review of my props every week that I call out. So I'll give
Hold
that
you
real
accountable.
quick.
Yeah.
Right, right. I'll give that real quick. It's kind of more fun too because I kind of forget about it. Like so last week I went what 3 of 6 on player props and 3 of 5 on player props and 1 for 3 on anytime touchdowns. So Ray Davis was the big miss for me. I had him over 21.5 rushing yards. He did not get that. I think he had like 6 rushing yards. I had Shakir over 5.5 receptions. He got 6 receptions on 9 targets. I had James Cook over 82.5 rushing and receiving yards and over 2.5 receptions. He hit the over 82.5 rushing and receiving yards. He had 85, but he did not hit the receptions. He had 1 reception on 3 targets. So, right idea with the targets. He just didn't catch 2 of them. I had Jonathan Taylor over 106 rushing and receiving yards. He had 122. I think he cleared the 106 in the first half, so that was nice.
That's always nice.
Yeah, and then anytime touchdowns, I had Mac Hollins, James Cook, and Jonathan Taylor, and only James Cook scored. So 1 for 3 on those. You're the guest, so do you want to go first on player props that you like?
Yeah, and we've touched on the reasons why for a few of these, so I'm glad I'm giving good context. I'll start actually on the Bill side.
Okay.
I give me the over on both James Cook and Dawson Knox receiving yards. It's 17.5 for James
Yep.
Cook. That's easy money. I really do think so. And Dawson Knox 25.5. Maybe that goes higher by game, but I mean the news is already out, so I don't know. That's a pretty low number for the
It's
starting
because
tight
this
end.
year he hasn't
I know he's
been
not the starting
targeted
tight
too much, but
end.
2 games though he's been over 30 yards. Last game he was over 50. He was 2 for 50. So yeah, I think that's a great call out.
Yeah, so I think and again, just the fact that both of those positions are positions the Chiefs can be exploited at in the passing game. So
Yeah.
give me those two. And then on the Chiefs side, I do want to take Kareem Hunt over 61.5 rushing yards. I think the Chiefs are just going to lean on the ground game. He's had 20 plus carries seemingly every game he's played for the Chiefs this year. And I think it's just volume wise, he'll get there. And Noah Gray over under 1.5 catches. Give me that over. Chiefs second tight end.
Yes.
I
Yes.
he's been one of the best tight end twos in the NFL this year. He's super reliable. It was funny. I tweeted a few weeks ago. I tweeted out a stat. Khalil Kerr was the only player to have a higher completion rate, to them
Yep.
than Noah Gray in the entire NFL out of qualified receivers. And so I think this is a game where just like if the Bill, we talked about the Bills manning up more, but if they do kind of go to their, play their typical sound zone coverage, I think Noah Gray is going to be that safety outlet a few times. So I think that's easy money to get him over 1.5 catches. And so yeah, those are 4 that kind of stood out to me. So I think
I
those
love
are
it.
all
I have the Cook one as well as far as for receiving
good.
yards, but I have him over 2.5 receptions.
Oh,
Um,
that's good. Yeah, I'd throw that in.
yeah, he's done that a couple times this year. Like last week, he got the 3 targets. I think in a close game, and especially with the way the Chiefs play defense, I think he's going to get more opportunities. So I have him over 2.5. I have Shakir over 5.5 receptions as well. Um, it doesn't matter what coverage you run on him. A lot of stuff they do is behind the line of scrimmage with him and
Mhm.
quick access throws, and so I think those opportunities are going to be there for him. And he's hit that line the last 4 games, and it's plus 122. So I even like the odds, just
Yeah, that's
for
nice.
that
Got
one.
the
That's
juice.
that's pretty higher odds. Yeah. I like Noah Gray as well. I have him over 16.5 receiving yards. He's done that in 5 of 6 games, and I think this is a perfect game for him to catch 1 or 2 passes and get over that line. I like a Hunt over 2.5 receptions and over 13.5 receiving yards. You saw last week, when Mahomes was feeling the pressure, he was going to Hunt. I think Hunt had like 5 or 6 catches for like 50 yards or
Yeah,
something
he was
like
our
that.
leading receiver last week. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I could see that being this game as well. Check downs to him, screens. Bills have not been great against screens, so I could totally see him get a couple chances at that. I think those lines are both too low. And then anytime touchdowns. Do you have any anytime touchdowns that you like?
Kareem is an easy one. I think not an easy one, I should say. I've kind of mentioned earlier the Chiefs' red zone run offense isn't great, but I do think when they get down there in these big games, they don't mess around. Sometimes they do. It's really the not huge games. I feel like they go a little cute with the red zone stuff. So I think Kareem Hunt's a good one. I would also say DeAndre Hopkins, maybe just because the value is a good one. He really has opened up the red zone a little
He was like
bit.
185 or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
and so two touchdowns against the Bucks, both in the red zone. His first full game with the Chiefs. I think Kelsey gets a lot of that attention in the red zone. They play off of that. That that one of their Hopkins touchdown was a high low where the safety just drove on Kelsey and Hopkins was right over the top. I mean, they're going to play off each other, and I do think Kelsey demands that attention a little more. And so I think D Hop's a good value because the Chiefs do need to pass when they get in the red zone a lot of the times. I think this Bills defense is sound enough to kind of hold up against the run when they need to, like you mentioned. And so I think it will take, finding that auxiliary option off of Kelsey in the red zone. So give me D Hop plus 185.
I like that. That's a good one. I got Dawson Knox plus 330. I think that's
That's
just
great
way
value.
too high. Yeah, it's way too high. And, he's seemed to find space against this Chiefs defense in the past. And I think even in the red zone without Kincaid there. So, yeah,
Yeah.
Knox plus 330. And then the other red zone target, I think Matt Collins plus 500, I think is just crazy high. Without Keon in there, they
Love it.
like to
I
line
love it.
him up out wide, yeah, and so plus 500 is just crazy. And then Travis Kelsey, I think plus 170 is just way too high for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
right?
that is, yeah,
Like he's
you're
normally
right.
around like 110, 120, something like that. I know he hasn't gotten the end zone a lot this year, but they always draw stuff up for him. I think this is a great game for him to sit in zones and in the red zone, and I could totally see him getting in. Even one of those, shovel pass plays, I could definitely see Kelsey get in. So plus 170.
Yeah, the other thought I had, which I was going to pull up the odds real quick, but I do think either of these quarterbacks in these games, getting into the red zone, I think both of
Yeah,
them, tend to just, hey, screw it, I just want to, I need to get this touchdown. They're both playmakers like that. I
for
think
sure.
either quarterback to run it in is good too, especially Josh. I would say honestly.
Let's see what
Um,
their Josh
so
is plus 100,
oh
and
my,
Mahomes is really high. Mahomes is plus 420. That seems criminal. Like I guess I mean probably a lot of that is because you guys don't quarterback sneak him at all,
no, yeah, that's
and
true.
so it's
That
got to
that
be on a
factors in.
scramble. But he's done that.
No, and
So
it just seems like he is very conservative in the red zone a lot of the time, but in these big moments, like in the big games, really, like when it feels like a big opponent, big matchup, I think the juices just get to him, and he's like, I just need to get this ball in somehow. I mean, the Niners game you saw this
yeah,
year, that was the one he ran over the dude. Oh yeah, I'm thinking of the Bengals game last year is when he like jumped over the pile and like barely got there. Like he's a madman sometimes, and so is Josh. So but I think with the value, I would probably add. I'll add Mahomes onto mine. I think it's good
okay,
value.
yeah, plus 420, and then I misspoke. The Josh Allen one is plus 135. That seems crazy that he's plus
That
money.
is,
Like especially in a big game like this, he's gonna
yeah,
run the ball.
yeah. And
So
The Chiefs. I mean, you guys have always exploited it, but this Chiefs defense
yeah,
is very susceptible to the quarterback run game, whether it is scrambling or, especially on early downs, I should say, whether it's scrambling or the design runs.
yeah, he's had some of the epic runs. Those the hurdle of was that Justin Reed that he
Yes.
hurdled? That
Oh yeah.
was crazy, man. We got to have our small victories as Bills fans. We don't get the playoffs and the Super Bowl ones, so we got to have the victories like that. So
Oh man, there's been a few. There's been some great moments in this rivalry for sure.
for sure. All right, well, let's get to the blueprint to victory. What is your blueprint to a Chiefs victory?
Yeah, so both sides of the ball, I think we've talked about all the details of it, so I'll keep it simple. I think on offense, the Chiefs need to finish the drives. I think they'll be able to sustain drives, they'll be able to chip away at the Bills potentially, but they really need to find a way to finish the drives, not go 3 for 4 or 1 for 4 in the red zone like they did last week. So that's a big thing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they got to find a way to disrupt the pocket, disrupt Josh Allen, disrupt his rhythm, keep him in the pocket too, and yeah, finish those plays, but disrupt the pocket with just 4-man rushes without blitzing. Again, I think it's been a kryptonite a little bit for the Chiefs. Their 4-man rush, they have not been able to impact the game by themselves as much lately. We need to see Chris Jones dominate. We need to see George Karlaftis have a big game. They cannot rely on the linebackers to get pressure for them because I do think Josh is going to dice them up, and that's just going to play into what he wants to do.
Yeah, I think those are great. Some of those are the same as mine. So for the Bills' offense, I have no turnovers. This is not a game where you can give Mahomes extra possessions and give away your possessions, and then touchdowns in the red zone. You got to score
Yeah.
touchdowns in the red zone, not field goals. Defense, I had the same thing: force field goals, not touchdowns, right? And then No explosive plays. Make the Chiefs grind long drives. I think that is going to be big. No worthy deep shots, no nothing crazy. Let's
Yeah.
just keep everything in front of you this game, and hopefully get a mistake or two, some penalties, stuff like that. But yeah, that's no easy points.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I did have blueprints for Bills' victory on offense. I would just say, really, I think James Cook is such a huge X factor in this game. I think Amari Cooper is kind of maybe the X factor in terms of if he plays or not. But I think in terms of once the game kicks off, and I think if the Bills' offense can continue to find ways to get James Cook in space, I think he can, he really be a difference maker. And then yeah, I think I agree with you that you know just just making the Chiefs chip away, but not allowing that big play because I
Yeah.
think the Chiefs have sustained drives this year. They have honestly gotten pretty good at that, where they can chip away, but again,
Yep.
not finishing in the red zone. I think they want to finish those drives before they get in the red zone. Let's just say it that way. They want to find that 30, 40 yard maybe touchdown instead of getting close and all of a sudden having the space condensed and it's harder to
Hmm.
manufacture open windows. So I think you're right on that. Is forcing the Chiefs to get all the way to the 1 yard line before they're scoring. That kind of thing.
That's a great point. All right, well, score prediction time. What do you got?
Man, I went and I'm just and I think this game could be the game they trip up for sure, but I'm not going to predict it. I think the Chiefs do rise to the occasion. 27-24 was my prediction, which is the same score as last year in Buffalo. It would be poetic if it was that way, but no, I think the Bills' offense is going to push the Chiefs' defense. They always do, but I really feel like Spags can dial it up at the right moment. It just takes the right situation. I think the Bills not having all their guys, especially if Cooper's not out, I think that could just play into that a little bit. And I see the Chiefs' offense. I think with Juju being back, it just gives Mahomes another option to be confident too. When he is confident compared to when he's not, it's just such a difference. And I think this is a game where he'll play, confident in the pocket. He'll overcome some kind of maybe faults on the offensive line, or he'll make the plays when he needs to. And so I do think the Chiefs pull this one out, but I could absolutely see it going the other way. But let's get it. Let's see Mahomes. Let's see him do it again. That's 10-0. I just want 10-0. That's all I want. That's all I want, Jake. I just want 10-0.
I wish I could say the same thing for us. I would love to see us go 10-0. Yeah, I think the Mahomes thing for sure is comfortable. Like McDermott and Leslie Frazier in the past, when he was defensive coordinator, have not done a good job making Mahomes uncomfortable, and especially in the
Seriously, yeah.
playoff matchups. You could argue last year in the regular season was the first time they had made Mahomes not comfortable, and that was a lot of that was Von Miller and timely pressures. So we'll see if they can do that this year. But for my prediction, I have the Chiefs winning as well. I have almost the identical score as you. I have Chiefs 27, Bills 23.
Wow.
I think the injuries are just too much for the Bills. I think Keon being out, Kincaid being out is huge. Spencer Brown possibly being out is another really big one, and the offense is what usually carries the Bills in these matchups. And Josh puts on the cape and becomes Superman, and Mahomes and him just duel it out on just another level. And so I think there's gonna be a lot of pressure on Josh to have to execute without some of his key pieces in there, and I think it's gonna be too much. And then yeah, no Matt Milano I think is a huge one, and so I worry about the Bills being able to get enough stops. So yeah, I think it'll be a close game back and forth, but I think the Chiefs are just gonna be too efficient and edge the Bills out.
Well, I applaud you because I think this game could go either way, but that's
For
what I
sure.
keep coming back to. Honestly, is it's just a little almost unfair that how many things are out for Buffalo. I mean, the Chiefs obviously have dealt with plenty of offensive injuries, but it just they're getting into a rhythm now. They're getting people healthy. Where yeah, the Bills just so many key pieces in that pass catching group. That's why I do think if they can get James Cook, a big game, I think that's a way they can win this game for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a key point and something you got to acknowledge and something that hopefully they don't have to deal with in the playoffs, and so we can be kind of full go when we bout the next time.
Yeah, it sucks when you never want to say like injuries are the deciding factor in games, but even the playoffs last year. I mean, the Bills were
Oh,
just
for sure.
decimated by injuries, and that's part of it, right? You need some good luck. You need whether that's the ball bouncing your way or injuries, and so We'll see. I could easily see a game that goes the other way and the Bills winning.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we'll see how the game unfolds. But yeah, thank you so much, Ron. Really
Yes,
appreciate it.
sir.
Will you let everyone know where they can find you and what you have coming up next in the future?
Yeah, so I know this is Saturday night, but if you want to get that Sunday morning little game preview from the Chiefs perspective, I'll have my 5 things to watch on the game. It should be out on Saturday. But yeah, arrowheadpride.com is where I do my work. At Ron underscore Kopp on Twitter. I do just a lot of film clips, a lot of cool stats. That's kind of, I'm a nerd like that. So I just throw them out there. And yeah, so if you want a little Chiefs taste, come check it out. Come follow. I appreciate you having me on, Jake. It's been a good time. I'm excited for a good game.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be awesome. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get you back on here for another rematch in the
Yes, sir.
playoffs.
Yes, sir. I'd love it.
All right, have a good one. All right, well, thanks again to Ron Kopp at Arrowhead Pride for joining us this week. He was an awesome guest. I'm working on something for next week, so maybe he will be on next week for the Bills bye week. I'm gonna try to do a kind of a round table with a couple different content creators, and we'll do around the NFL and kind of talk about storylines, and then the Week 12 slate as well. So more to follow on that. Next up, we have the new Sunday morning edition of No One to Blame at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's tomorrow morning. Join Jesse, Kevin, and myself. We'll give you our favorite player props, parlays, and plays for the Week 11 slate. We'll also give you FanDuel daily fantasy lineups and some strategy. Come join, hop in. We'll take live comments and questions. So if you have questions about your fantasy football lineups or props or bets, anything like that you have questions on, just post them live in the chat and we will answer them live on the show. Also, tomorrow, immediately after the Bills Chiefs game, join us on the Do Champions social media channels. So, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and we'll have the post game show. We'll give you instant reaction and breakdown of the key moments from the game. Also, feel free to comment live on that. We might have the call in feature as well going, so you can call in live and give your feedback and your comments live, and we'll answer your questions. I want to thank our show sponsor, Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms, for supporting us. Please remember this holiday season to buy a real Christmas tree grown here in the USA. Thank you all for joining and tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. Next Saturday, like I said, it'll be 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be a bye week. So, again, I'm going to try to get a couple different content creators on, and we will do storylines. We'll do predictions for the rest of the season. We'll discuss the best games for the Week 12 slate. And so it should be a good time. So definitely come check us out next Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Please follow myself at JakeFBData on Twitter, Instagram, and also my guest, at Ron Kopp for at Arrowhead Pride. Please follow him as well. So thanks again, everybody. I'll see you all next week. Go Bills, and hopefully it'll be another Bills victory.